Did you hear about these leaked Telegram messages from the young Republicans?
Yeah, I'm glad you
Wow.
brought that up. Yeah.
So let me give a recap for folks. It's really disgusting stuff. This is from the original article from Politico. It says leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. They referred to black people as monkeys and, quote, the watermelon people, and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about sexually assaulting their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believed supported slavery. And they said, quote, I love Hitler. So I knew immediately when it was the quote young Republicans club, people would misconstrue that to think these are like teenagers. These are people in their 20s and 30s. One is a state rep. These are not children. And they are saying the most vile things. And to that echo chamber piece, JD Vance gets on and minimizes it. It's just kids being kids. His version of, oh, it's just locker room talk. He's on there saying they shouldn't be canceled for, what they said in private messages and all of these things that are completely skirting the fact that this is hateful, dehumanizing speech coming from political operatives, whether elected or appointed or in administration, and completely unbecoming of anyone who purports to uh, serve through government and politics. What did y'all see that? How did you react?
Mostly, I wanted to just wash their mouths out with soap. It's it's like that's if I had talked like that when I was younger, well, and the few times that I did kind of go those directions, my mother sat me down in a chair and said, "No, young lady," and literally I got my mouth washed out with soap. Now that might be
Mm,
considered torture today, but it was effective. And I just thought to myself, man, I wish my mom was around to sort of rattle a few of these cages, man. Who were the parents of these people? I mean, that was my main response is that I wanted to reparent them. Um,
mm,
and I just thought, how did we even get to a place where, I mean, I understand, people, I even understand the idea of potentially locker room talk. We all say things around private circles that we don't shouldn't have and we can be ashamed of. There's a big story about this right now in Virginia, where sadly enough, the Democratic candidate for Attorney General, there was a text that he sent. I guess it was in the wake of a school shooting. He was really upset at the fact that the state government in Virginia was seeming to reverse some of the gun laws that we had been putting in place. And there were never enough gun laws in Virginia anyway. And so he got really mad at one of the people in the legislature and says, "Well, I wish your kids would get killed by guns." And so that text was released as part of the campaign that's going on right now in Virginia. And my sense is that he should come out and simply defend himself by saying, we all say really stupid things when we're angry. And I've always been really angry about the fact that this country and this Commonwealth in particular has no meaningful gun laws to stop this kind of thing. And so in a fit of rage, I turned that around on one of my colleagues from the opposite party and said things that I should not have said. Okay, fair enough. We have all had an experience like that. But this text string is not quite like that. This is not a sort of an isolated incident where these people were talking about something in relationship to a particular political issue or a particular thing they were mad about. This was like a string of the expression of stuff that they really thought at a deep level about other people. And when we start going back to, I think, what's becoming a main theme today, recognize the dignity and worth of every human being. Uh, there was no boundary in how much they were willing to demean people who were different or who disagreed with them.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the difference in those two pools of bad behaviors. And I wish that we lived in a world where there could be clarity and around episodes like this.
I think the things that jumped out at me is kind of what you're saying, Diana. So, like, it's one thing if you say something in the heat of the moment, right? Even the law recognizes that we all kind of react in some ways in the heat of passion. There are ways to kind of recognize that human behavior. These texts took place over 7 months,
Right.
Mm.
right? So these were not like in reaction to one hot thing and everybody had a quick hot take and went and it kind of led into a frenzy. These were sit back, go to bed, get up, like day after day for 7 months. It's a culture. And I think that's the thing we have to kind of take into account here is that this was not just a few one-offs. This was 7 months and it was across the country. It wasn't also just the Indiana young Republicans. I mean, this was across New York, Kansas, Arizona, Vermont. It was also not just it was none of them are in the South. These are kind of, like most of those are like blue state kind of places or purple state kind of kinds of places. And so that's what's happening here. And as you said, Jamar, these aren't high school kids. These are college and 20-something-year-olds as well. So they're adults with like a full head on their head. And the other thing that I think struck me about it is like when you read through the whole thing, and it is just chilling. It really turned my stomach. I mean, it is, like they're saying things, I'm ready to watch people burn now, was one of the comments, on here. And this the glee again, I keep coming back to that word. I'm going to write something at some point, but the glee at the violence, the glee at the using of the N word, calling lesbian and gay people demeaning slur words as well. Like it's just full of this vile, putrid, racist, Nazi stuff here, and they're all just egging each other on. There's not anyone kind of going, "Hey, wait a minute." Like it just kind of rolls on, and maybe there's some people who were put off, but they were silent on the political reports. There wasn't anyone pushing back saying, "You know what? Like that's not appropriate. That's not okay, right? That's hateful. Like we shouldn't be doing that." Not a single person on this text chain, according to Politico, actually stepped in. And so, like, I think we often think, "Oh, well, uh, the sort of gerontocracy that's leading the parties, it's the older generation. It's Trump, and he's, really old. This is the next generation of the MAGA movement that we're talking about here. And then the last thing I'll say is this: can you imagine what Trump would be doing if this were the young Democrats?
Mm.
There'd be arrests if these were young. He calling them terrorists.
Yeah. He
I
called them
guarantee
Antifa.
you, that's what would be happening. And there's not been a blip that I've seen coming from Trump's mouth about this. No pullback. And the thing is that it's clear that they were kind of performing in many ways, and that Trump was giving them permission to do this. Some of them were talking about wanting to get endorsements from Trump on the group chat. So it's clear that sort of it is coming from the top. There's this kind of permission structure being generated by Trump, Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, all of it, right? And so at the same time, they're weaponizing anti-Semitism to go after universities and defending Israel, and not being willing to say anything about Gaza. At the same time they're doing that, they're providing cover for actual Nazi language, right? About loving Hitler and gas chambers and watching people burn. Like that's actually happening all at the same time. So like the hypocrisy, the double standard, it really made me just upset and incensed here that, yeah, not one word of pushback. I haven't seen it from anybody, not from Mike Johnson, not from Pete Hegseth, not from Trump, uh, any of them saying, oh yeah, actually this is a problem.
And you're right. It's a culture. This is months and months and months. Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, a person speaks. And so, and especially in private, like you tell him what you really think. And I do believe there's this thing about venting and catharsis, and I have group chats that that is not meant for public consumption. But at the same time, it is a moment of let me get this out of my system with trusted people who will also check me and call me on anything that is truly dehumanizing, or crosses the line. There was no sense of that here. It is part of the culture, and I think it gets to the fact that it wasn't the young Democrats, and who knows what they're saying, but if there was, there would be an outcry from Democrats. There would be some sort of consequences, or at least calls for
You'd
them,
sure
right?
hear it from us. I guarantee you, you'd hear it from us if that
Yes,
happened. Yeah.
exactly. So
I just told you a story about a
Yeah.
Democratic candidate who did something he really should not have done. And
and you're calling, yeah.
I'm not trying to hide that,
You wrote his apology speech for him.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, historically though, this is what I say to people. There's always been a party of progress and a party of regress. And the party of regress typically appeals, it typically makes racist, sexist appeals. Like that's their platform. That's what they run on. Right after the Civil War, there was a party ticket that said, "This is the white man's country. Let white men rule." And that never actually went away. No matter what the party label was, Republican or Democrat, what matters is the party platform. What matters is the appeal. So there's always a party that is appealing to more broad democratic participation, however unevenly, however imperfectly. And then there's always a party that says our winning strategy is to say, let's go back to the way things were when fewer people had a say, and mainly when wealthy white men had most of the power. And so that's what we're seeing to this day. Now, I'm not saying every single Republican is saying this or agrees with it, not by a long shot, but there's always a party to which these kinds of figures and this kinds of language is attracted and finds a home. And that ought to be cause for introspection, not deflection.